Well, hi everyone. Babula and I are back with you again. After some more tech problems, we don't know what's going on. Of course, we have to look at both our charts. Maybe there's some sort of strange thing going on. But anyway, it's great to be back with you. And particularly this month, because this is a big month.
It's huge.
Every month's big.
Yes.
But this one's really the capstone. You know?
It is. Yeah.
With the solar eclipse, new moon in Sagittarius, and of course the 21st of December, kaboom! Not really. But I'll let Babula tell you about that. So why don't you tell us about
the second half of December is pretty big, because there's a number of things all happening one after another and all within like a few days of each other, and each one of them is really significant on its own, but put them all together, very, very interesting. So on the 15th of December, and I'll give you some timing for this because I'm speaking of Brisbane time here. It's at 2:16 in the morning. That's the exact moment of the actual eclipse, 2:16 a.m. A total solar eclipse. And I remember looking this up some time ago. It will be visible in South America, in parts of South America. That's where they'll actually see it.
I don't think we'll be seeing it here.
No, that's right. So the moon will pass across the sun and block out the sun, and that's where they'll actually see it. So it's a new moon. Every solar eclipse is a new moon. Every 6 months, the new moon is an eclipse. And this one is a total eclipse, which makes it even more potent, really quite strong. So, it's been preceded 2 weeks before by that rather wild Gemini lunar eclipse, full moon, followed on by this lunar eclipse. So we're well and truly can very easily describe December as the eclipse month, eclipse season. And that period around eclipses is always really potent. Things happen, and historically things happen in the world. They happen, with public figures, events, our own lives. They're real catalysts for and activations of things coming to a head, things getting triggered, things happening.
And I think this solar eclipse that's coming up relates to Donald Trump too, doesn't it?
Well, he's very much got a lot of Sagittarius and Gemini energy in his chart. So these eclipses are Sagittarius Gemini eclipses. And this particular one really is kind of all over his south node moon and opposite Uranus. Very, very interesting. So hang on to your hats, because anything can happen. So
it does.
And does. Now, there's something else that's interesting about this eclipse. It'll have Mercury sitting right next to it, because Mercury's gone into Sagittarius, and Mercury's communication messages, our voice, speaking words. So the other thing is that it's very, very close to the galactic centre. So the galactic centre moves very, 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 very slowly over long periods of time, and is currently around 26, 27 degrees of Sagittarius, looking through the astrological lens. And so from Earth, it's looking right at the centre of our galaxy. And it's like this enormous great black hole. And from Earth, when we look in that direction to that centre, as the whole galaxy is swirling around, we see it runs right through those degrees of Sagittarius. So this eclipse is very close to the galactic centre. So that's a really powerful part of the zodiac, and it gives it extra significance and extra weight. And of course, Sagittarius Gemini, that whole story, as we were talking about last time, is so much about information, knowledge, truth, media, ideas. And the eclipse is also square Neptune, which throws a whole other energy into it. And Neptune, when Neptune's having a strong influence, things can get a bit strange, unusual. Again, it's that sense of, what's real, what's not real.
Yes.
Things can get very confusing and veiled and mysterious.
Which is what's been happening with us with the technology.
We cannot
Hence,
understand
we are
it.
here again in person, face to face, doing this recording.
That's right. It makes absolutely no sense. I've been doing Zoom calls all week with sessions, no problem. Try to get on with Cheryl. It didn't work for either of us.
No, very strange.
It's very strange.
Yes.
And I said maybe life likes us to actually get together and sit here together and do it this way.
Yes.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not. And I just jumped in the car. So, so that's a really important piece, and that's on the 15th, Eastern Australian Standard Time, not daylight savings, so Brisbane. So other parts of Australia got daylight savings and so on, we can adjust the timing in different parts of the world. So so there's a whole sequence from the 15th through to Christmas, like within about a week, and it goes bang, 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 like that. So the eclipse on the 16th, the following day, Venus, lovely Venus, the goddess, the feminine principle of love and beauty, into Sagittarius, joins the Sun and Mercury. Yeah. So Venus is currently in the lead up is in Scorpio, and she will come out of Scorpio and go into Sagittarius, and of course, cockatoo. Wow. I'm sorry, that animals and wildlife always distract me. So it's so much about truth, you know, this emphasis on Sag now. So that's on the 16th, but on the same day Chiron comes out of its long 4.5 month retrograde and turns direct at almost 5 degrees of Aries, which is more fire like Sag. So that's 2 days. Solar eclipse, Venus into Sag.
Oh gosh.
Chiron direct. Yeah, and when these slow-moving planets change direction, their presence is really felt, and Chiron is very much about wounds and healing. And then the next day is another.
It's like the year rolled up into a week.
It is. It's like there's this compacted focus of energy and huge shifts all happening together. On the 17th, early in the morning, our time, Saturn leaves Capricorn, where it's been for 2.5 years. The whole world goes, oh, wow.
Yes.
And Saturn moves into Aquarius, which is a very, very different energy. So if we talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
So Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn and is being very potent in its own sign. And, you know, Saturn changes sign every 2.5 years. As I said, its full cycle is around 29 years. So it'll be another 29 years or so before Saturn comes back to Capricorn. So, you know, it's quite a slow-moving planet. But it's been very powerful in his own sign the last 2.5 years. But especially powerful this year because it's been travelling with Pluto. And you don't mess with those two guys. They are the very, very strong energies. And together, boy, do they mean business. So the departure of Saturn from Capricorn, and look, some key words we can use for Saturn and Capricorn are constrictions, restrictions, contraction, imprisonment, boundaries, laws, rules, regulations. And whenever we're experiencing our own personal strong Saturn transits and periods in our life, we often feel like, you know, we'll find ourselves saying things like, oh God, this is hard. You know, they're the words that come up. Oh, why is this so tough? Yeah, it's tough going. It can feel heavy, challenging. Things don't move quickly. Saturn's the lord of time and karma. You know, we're dealing with issues from the past and they take their time. He's like a timekeeper. It's one of the reasons Capricorns like clocks.
Oh, do they?
and things like antiques and history, things from the past.
Yeah, history I can understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're very into time. Like those of you watching this who have some significant Capricorn in your chart, you'll know that you absolutely hate being late. You are always
early,
not just on time.
That's right.
I often make things by the skin of my teeth, but not a Capricorn or Capricorn rising or moon. You must be there early, and because things can happen, things can go wrong, and you want to make sure you're not late because it's a really high value, being on time and being responsible. Yeah. So there's been all these themes that have been emphasised in the last 2.5 years, but even more so this year. And so we can say for many, many, many people it's been extremely tough and hard going. Yeah. And challenging and doing without, and then every now and then there's a panic buy at the supermarket. My God, will we run out of food? These are kind of Capricorn things. So that's on the 17th. So already that's just three days in a row.
I'm looking at your page.
One after another.
Gosh.
And each one of them is highly significant in itself. And it's all condensed, as you said. And then on the 19th, Jupiter, which has also been in Capricorn for the last year, it's been a very important piece of the events of the year as well, leaves Capricorn and goes into Aquarius. So all of a sudden now we have these two planets that are the largest planets in our solar system and visible to the naked eye. Jupiter is highly visible and very, very bright. Saturn is less bright because it's further away, and is a bit smaller than Jupiter, but it's still visible. If you know where to look, you can see Saturn in the night sky. And they're very visible now because they're travelling so close together. They're really close. They're in late Capricorn, about to move into Aquarius, and just after sunset, if you go and look in the east, you'll see them. You don't need a telescope or a microscope or binoculars, but you would see them more clearly with that. That's an amazing thing to do. But there they are after the sun's gone down in the west. Here in Eastern Australia, you'll see them. And then on the 21st, let's talk about Jupiter for a minute, because
I was just going to say, I'm glad we had Jupiter.
Jupiter's been helpful this year.
Because I would hate to think what would have happened in the world if Jupiter had not been in Capricorn.
I know.
It would have been terrible, because Jupiter is such a benefic planet.
That's right.
And everything that we've gone through with, Capricorn's hard. It's hard work.
Yes, it is.
So it sort of softened it a bit, didn't it?
It has, and it's so like Saturn and Jupiter are sort of a pair of planets, if you like, and they do. Before the outer planets were discovered, Uranus was discovered in the 1700s, 1781. Before then, we only knew of 7 planets. And those 7 planets related to the 7 days of the week, the 7 colours of the spectrum, 7 primary chakras, 7 days of the week. It goes on and on. This number 7, and Jupiter and Saturn were the last 2 planets. They were the end of the line, and astrologers worked with those 7 planets. Then Uranus was discovered, and boy, did the world change. That's a whole other story that we could talk about another time. Very interesting story. And but the Jupiter piece is very expansive. So Saturn is contraction, Jupiter is expansion. And Jupiter, while Saturn makes things tough because we have things we have to learn, karmic lessons to learn, things we have to face up to and deal with and grow up and become mature and responsible and deal with reality. Saturn's like the master of reality. Jupiter is more bountiful and offers gifts and opportunities and opens doors. Like Saturn tends to close them and says, you can't go forward until you've dealt with this. And Jupiter just flings the door out and says, go for it. So they're kind of, but they do work together, and they're important together. So Jupiter has been helpful. So even in the midst of all the challenges of 2020, Jupiter brings a sense of hope, rays of light of what are the positive things we're experiencing out of the year. You know, what are we learning? How are we expanding?
It's helped us reframe things.
Absolutely.
Hasn't it? Yeah.
And because it's rules Sagittarius, and it's helps us to see things with, you know, clearer eyes, different eyes, and look from a different perspective. So, and many people have actually experienced that this year in the midst of all these challenges. Gone, you know what, there's a lot of good things happening here for me too, or I'm seeing going on in the world as well.
Yeah, Jupiter's the eternal student, eternal teacher.
Yes.
You know, so it's taught us a lot.
Taught us a great deal, that's right. And many people are finding this, that they feel they've grown tremendously this year. And that's the point of it all, actually.
Yeah, I tend to think of it as post-traumatic growth.
Yeah,
well, it is.
What a brilliant phrase.
Yeah.
It is.
I didn't make it up. It's known.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It makes a lot of sense.
And it has, you know, instead of going down that trauma road, that Jupiter energy has helped us reframe things and see them in a different light as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and which I'm thankful for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I said before, Saturn tends to look to the past. Jupiter always looks forward because it's a Sagittarian energy, and it looks forward to see what's possible. We're dealing with this is reality, and what's possible as I look ahead. So as they both change sign within 2 days of each other into a very different energy, it's hugely significant. Now there's more to say about that, but if I follow the timing sequence, 2 days later on the 21st, we have the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. And it's a really important solstice, the Capricorn, and the solstice, of course, is when the sun moves into Capricorn every year, when the sun literally is at 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Capricorn. So just as we feel like, okay, Jupiter and Saturn have just left Capricorn, wow, the sun goes in, but the sun moves quickly and will only be there for 4 weeks. The solstices are very important turning points, and this one is especially for many reasons, and many Indigenous, for want of a better term, when I use the word Indigenous, but you know, traditional cultures and wisdom keepers, healers and so on from different cultures around the world have been preparing for this solstice for a long time and giving it great importance.
I think in Australia, I think way back in our history, that somewhere along the line, someone has taught the first people some astrology. And introduced it into their mythology, or if you want to call it that.
I think so.
Yeah. And whether they were Egyptians, whether they were aliens,
Lemurians,
who knows?
That's right.
Yeah, but I think that information about the 21st of December and that time period with our traditional people, knowing that, as well as astrologers, they had to have tapped into astrology somewhere along the line.
And they have very strong star lore, don't they? It's very deep in the in the culture. Absolutely.
And a strong connection to the Pleiadians. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is an important solstice, and we know that there is a gathering of elders at Uluru on that morning, and they're asking for anyone who feels connected and aligned with this in any way to, you know, during that day, or like in Brisbane, for example, the moment of the solstice is at 8 a.m. on the 21st. So you might want to, at that time, or certainly on that day or the evening before, or whenever you're able to or feel inclined to meditate, to get with people, to drum, to whatever you feel to do, like to really tune in and connect, because what they are saying, as I understand it, like this is a huge portal, and they're going to be working towards like anchoring earth energy but opening up to the cosmos, and that rainbow serpent energy coming down from the cosmos down onto earth, onto Gaia, and remember that this is happening a couple of days after these two important planets have changed sign and gone into Aquarius, no less. Then, the following day, Jupiter and Saturn make an exact conjunction at 0 degrees and 29 minutes of Aquarius. There's a lot to say about that.
Off you go.
So, every 20 years, these two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, come together and make a conjunction, meaning they meet up at the same degree. For the last 200 years, except for one, for the last, in the 60s, and that's an interesting story too, but all of the conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn for the last 200 years have been in Earth signs. And Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions mark these 20-year cycles that have got a lot to do with worldly affairs, but in our own lives too. You might want to look back at 20 years ago when that conjunction was happening in Taurus. But they're like, for example, financial astrologers, political mundane astrologers pay a great deal of attention to this Jupiter-Saturn cycle. That's really important. You could use it for, weather and all kinds of things. So this is really important because that 200-year Earth phase is closing, and the Earth is to do with, in terms of this cycle, with mundane practical affairs and finances and so on. Now, we haven't had these conjunctions occur in an air sign, and Aquarius is air, for 800 years. And it's not just that it's changing element, which is important in itself, but that it's at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Now, it could be in Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra. They're the three air signs, and at any one of the 30 degrees of each of those signs. So it's got its option of like 90 degrees. But no, it's 0 degrees, and 0 degrees of every sign is really potent, just as 29 degrees. The start and the closing of each sign are really powerful, potent degrees. 0 degrees of Aquarius suggests, by its very nature, it's like the birth of the Aquarian age. And it's not necessarily that the Aquarian age literally starts on that date, because it's really a transition, and these ages are over 2,000 years long. But it's a huge marker of an energetic shift that is tremendously significant. Not only that, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be closer to the Earth than they have been for a long, long time. So like they've come right in as they shifted into 0 degrees of Aquarius and come together. So literally all the second half of December, Jupiter and Saturn are at this 0 degrees of Aquarius. It's right on the solstice, straight after an eclipse. I mean, it's a phenomenal amount of energy. And of course, things are going to happen and things are going to change. There's going to be energetic shifts happening, and if the original peoples, the first peoples, if what they're saying is real, and it's tremendous portals are opening up, and it's not only coming from there, it's coming from many different directions, this message, from many directions. We can expect some significant changes and surprises and unexpected developments, but it doesn't mean that everything in the world is suddenly going to be different. It's like the beginning of a new energetic shift. It's the beginning of something. So this is now the beginning of a new 200-year cycle of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in the air signs, and this change of dynamic into this dimensional shift into the Aquarian age. I mean, my sense is that we started to get the first glimpses of the Aquarian age in the 1700s when Uranus was discovered. So the discovery of Uranus in 1781, which is the Aquarian planet, was such a shock to the scientific world. Nobody had any idea there was a planet beyond Saturn. because you can't see it with the naked eye. But telescopes suddenly, well, not suddenly, they'd been working on building stronger and stronger telescopes, and now there was a telescope strong enough. And this man called Herschel, an astronomer, saw this planet, and he realised it wasn't a fixed star. He tracked it and plotted it over a period of time and realised it was moving like a planet.
Yeah.
Everything changed. Scientific revolution, industrial revolution, cultural revolution, like political revolutions. This is the time of the big revolutions on the planet. Everything changed and hasn't stopped changing at a rapid rate ever since.
Yeah.
So this is like, it's like a crack opened, and the first rays, we could say, of the Aquarian age began to come in, but it's still very early. And now it's accelerating hugely. So it's a transition of a few hundred years, and I don't think we're fully there yet, but boy, are we getting there, and it's moving fast. And the old order, represented by Capricorn, because it's not all Capricorn's about, but it does speak to this, is literally being dismantled, although it may not look like that in some ways.
Yeah, and I think that we've been so focused on the difficulties this year that we've let some of the wins go by us.
Yes.
And not really fully appreciated that. And just one this week was how the bill to ban cash in Australia was defeated.
That's
and
right.
I think we're going to see a bit more of that going on in as we move into after the 21st of December particularly.
That's right.
Because things are changing, and while those restrictions have been in place and been trying to control everything, I think Aquarian energy says, no, that's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah, so we're shifting into that.
That's right.
Whatever's been, all the tentacles of restriction and control will slowly be chopped off.
That's right.
So that independent, freedom-loving Aquarian energy is going to say, no, that's not going to happen anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not having it.
Yeah.
So what's Aquarius about? Aquarius is the sign of freedom, of liberation, as is the planet Uranus, its ruler. And as I'm sure you will know, you will have heard many times, Aquarius is the sign of the humanitarian. And all of the fundamental symbol we have of Aquarius is a human pouring waters out of a jug. So people often think it's a water sign because it's this person pouring this vessel of water out to humanity. He's the water bearer. It's not a water sign, it's an air sign, and the air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, relate to the mental plane of human life, which is a big part of what being human's all about, actually. And so the air signs aren't represented by an animal. All the other signs are, but Aquarius is a person. In mythology, there's a character in Greek mythology called Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to bring it back down to humanity, because what he saw was that the gods were jealously holding on to fire and light, which is all about knowledge and consciousness. They said that's not right, and keeping it for themselves. Sounds a bit like the world we live in. And he said, no, that's not right. So we went and stole some fire and brought it down to humanity. And that's the Aquarian principle. That's the Aquarian ideal. It's a very idealistic sign. It's about equality, freedom, liberation, truth, acknowledging that everyone is unique and different and individual, and Aquarians will always stand for equality, to the point where it'll be like, don't tell me what to do. I'll do what I want.
You're not the boss of me.
And you're not the boss of me, I won't have it. But it's also a fundamental belief in, that phrase you've been hearing earlier in the year, stop working, we're all in this together. On that level in Aquarius, we are all human beings on this planet. And so there's this fundamental principle about equality across all the divides, like we're fundamentally human, and regardless of gender, race, age, etc., 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 these are the ideals. As every Aquarian knows, they go, yes, exactly. Why would you think differently?
Yes, exactly.
So in Aquarius, there's a natural, impulse to want to break free of the constraints and the restrictions of top-down control, because in Aquarius, the whole power base shifts from top down, and you get a little bit down bottom to equal opportunity. And it's not like, I'm not speaking of communism here where everything's owned by the state, because that's not Aquarian equality, that's just another form of dictatorship, as we've seen.
Yeah.
It's just another form of power grabbing, So it's more about people themselves having the power. It's literally people power is the Aquarian word.
Yeah.
And what happens then is that the people rise up, and we're already seeing that, but you wait, there's going to be a hell of a lot more of the rising up of the people as more and more people are awakening, because Uranus, the Aquarian planet, is the great awakener. And it shakes us till our teeth rattle. We get shocks. So there's more shocks coming, folks. Lots more.
Yeah.
Shocks, surprises to wake us up. Because in Capricorn, we want to be safe. We want to feel secure and solid, and that, that the parent government is going to take care of us. And Aquarius says, no, grow up and stand on your own two feet.
Yeah.
Take it yourself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So these are huge themes, and Aquarius also governs things like astrology and the stars and UFOs and the ETs and all the beings and races from the galaxies and dimensions that have all got their eye on planet Earth and humanity and what's going on.
Yes, well, I was just going to say that we've noticed in the in UFO research that there's a 20-year cycle.
Oh.
So there's been one through the 50s, one through the 70s, one through the 90s, and we're due now for one in the 2020s.
Certainly are, my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yes, so that's very true. Aquarius really is. I would not be surprised if we start to have a lot more UFO reports than what we've had in the last 20 years, which has been a lot less.
I think so too. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, the cycle.
Because in the last 20 years is marked by the sign of Taurus, which is very, very pragmatic and sensible. And tends to see eyes through the view that, well, if you can't see it, touch it, taste it, eat it, smell it, how do you know it exists?
Yeah, and there's been a lot of that growing up, I guess, if you could say it like that, to understand things in the UFO community, like understanding misidentifications, and not just with your eyes, but in photography and things like that. And there's been apps, which is a very Aquarian thing.
Yes.
Apps have been developed to be able to identify things in the night sky for the common person in the street. To be able to know, to be able to go and look at the planets, like you said before.
That's right.
Get your app, your star
get your
tracker,
phone out and track
follow
it.
and it'll show you where it is in the sky.
That's right.
That's another Aquarian influence,
That's right.
isn't it?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, technology is Aquarius, and of course it really started, with the discovery of Uranus back in the 1700s, and now look where we are.
Yeah.
And the Aquarian age, our human mind boggles at where we'll be in hundreds of years.
I think mine's boggling where we'll be in 20 years.
Exactly. Exactly.
I hope I'm around to see it.
Me too. It's phenomenal. And of course there are things about technology that are not great, but
when it doesn't work.
When it doesn't work. But I think ultimately where we're going is a place where it will belong to all of humanity and be freely opened. It's not at this point. But we will get there.
Yeah, and I think we'll see more things like apps being developed where everyone on the planet has access to knowledge.
Exactly.
Not just select few.
And free energy.
Yeah.
Because so much of that's been repressed so strongly. So we're in some very, very interesting, exciting time.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, to one of the other keywords for Aquarius is transparency.
Yes.
So I think we're going to see a lot more information come to light, and there's going to be a lot more transparency in what's going on, and we're going to find out a lot more things.
Revelations.
Yes, yep.
Disclosures.
Yes,
I
all
think
of
so
that.
too.
Yeah.
So you know, what's happening in December is like, it's like a shift of gears. And how each of us experience it, we'll just have to wait and see, you know, and we're all wired up differently and so on. And but I'm absolutely certain it will be very noticeable because, you know, so many of us are becoming more and more finely tuned, and as consciousness keeps expanding and our nervous systems and brains and chakras keep getting more and more activations and lights literally streaming in, and you know, as preparation for so much more that's to come.
Yes.
You know, our sensitivity to these things becomes more and more heightened and refined. So it's about paying attention, you know, tuning, noticing what you're experiencing, and not all of it necessarily will be comfortable. It can cause a lot of disturbance in the body, for example. So we need to be grounded. Aquarius is not a particularly grounded sky energy because it's connected very much to the sky and the cosmos and the universe.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this kind of high level mental plane. So, and you know, it's a sign of geniuses, honestly.
Yes.
Like brilliant minds. I've just been watching today an interview with a woman that I've been kind of following for a little while. She recently met a mother with her 2 young boys. And these aren't the only kids like this. You know, many of us are aware there's some extraordinary children coming to this planet. It has been coming for a little while. First it was the indigos and the crystal children, and now we've kind of run out of things to describe them with. But cosmic children, like so switched on, and this 10-year-old boy and his little brother who's 5 or 6, but this 10-year-old is describing very calmly and very matter-of-factly, like, well, this is what happened, and had an experience in meditation where he went to this other planet, and he described it in great detail. And you know, he knows he was taken there when that particular star system was conjunct our moon. You know, the moon was right there, and I think it was a full moon, and it was like it just completely opened up, and it completely shifted his consciousness, and it was like a great awakening. And he just speaks of it just so clearly. And his mother has taken them out of school because she recognised these boys need a very different kind of education because they are switched on, and the clarity was amazing. And so it's very heartening to know that there are these beings who are coming in, who know who they are. Like, he knows who he is, he knows where he's from, he knows why he's here, he knows what it's all about.
Well, don't you?
Well, yes, absolutely,
yes.
and more. And so all of this is accelerating.
Yeah.
You know, this is accelerating, particularly this year, isn't
Yes.
it? And this awakening to who we are and why we're here and how we want to participate in this, and it's quite exciting.
It is.
It is.
Yes.
I feel like I've been waiting all my life for this to come.
And that's a very interesting thing with that Aquarius energy. I think there is that, because sometimes I think Aquarius, because they do things at opposite beats to the mainstream society, don't they?
It's true.
So, you know, they'll be switched on to something and the rest of society not taking any notice of it.
Or thinks it's crazy.
Yeah, and by the time it's become popular for the mainstream, Aquarians, you know, they're going the opposite direction.
That's right.
So they can always have this feeling of not quite feeling like they belong on planet Earth.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in the culture and the world they live in.
Exactly.
Feeling like a misfit.
Yeah. And it's like putting a round peg into a square hole, and they don't find it really hard to find a place to belong.
That's right.
You know, they might have their physical family, but they don't feel a part of that.
Until, because I've seen this over the years in astrology classes and workshops, until they find their people. And I've seen this in astrology classes many times over the years, where at some point in a course, I used to run lots of quite long courses, somebody would suddenly say, oh my God, I feel like I found my people. I feel like I found my real family. You know, and it doesn't mean they don't love their blood family, but it's a different thing. It's a different energetic connection.
Yeah.
And suddenly I found people that I can actually talk to and be myself with. And it's this resonance with this Aquarius, because Aquarius governs astrology and astronomy, which are quite two different things, but Astro is the stars. It's this connection to the stars. And I've just had a communication from a man who is very connected to my family. They're not blood connection, but very connected to my family through one of my children. And he contacted me 2 days ago to say his daughter has suddenly, who's a young woman, in the last year has become so interested in astrology she can't get enough. Could I recommended a few websites for her to, really dive in? And I said, sure, and I sent her some information and said, and I'm happy to meet with her and hang out and talk with her. And I had a quick look at a chart. It blew my mind. It was all Aquarius and Sagittarius. Not all, but a lot of it. And it's just like, it's just so wonderful because she is aligned with this energy and she's already on the way, and she's, early 20s. And it's these people, children and young people who are going to be fully participating in what is to come. And really part of the activation and all the changes that are coming in the way we live together on this planet, which is the Aquarius, and it's going to be different. So we couldn't keep going the way it was.
We may even come back as some of those children in the future.
Exactly, sure.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll see each other again.
I'm sure.
So it's just amazing. It's a really amazing, exciting thing, and it won't come without challenges, of course, because big, death rebirth processes like this, if anyone who's had a child or been in a room when a child's been born, it's intense.
Yeah.
And when a woman has her first child, it's actually, it's called labour for good reason, and it's an intense process, and her life is changed permanently. And so these big deaths and rebirths, which is what we're in now, there's no way we're going back to where we were. And no individual is going back to where they were, and the whole of humanity isn't going back. There's no going back.
But to reframe that in a positive light, because I am a Sagittarius.
Well, I see it as positive anyway, but please.
Yes, it's because some people can feel a bit of grief about that.
Thank you, they certainly can.
And I've spoken to people about the grief that they feel, the loss of how life used to be. And I felt a bit of that myself when I think back into the 60s, how, those times were wonderful. But times are for people at that time, and then we move on and things evolve. But, knowing what I've learnt this year, I wouldn't want to go back and undo that. In so many areas of my life, with, I've reevaluated things with my friends and my family and my interests, and, I want to pursue those more deeply. But also the knowledge and understanding that I have gained through politics, which I wasn't particularly interested in before. I've certainly become a lot more politically minded. I'm watching what people are doing more closely. And probably I should have done that earlier in my life. I mean, I've done it, I have, to a point, but not to the degree I have this year. And I've dug around in the science of medicine, looking at vaccines and all those types of things, and I've really done a lot of self-education this year, like a lot of other people have too. And I think that's really important, and that's part of that time to grow up and time to be responsible.
Which is Saturn in Capricorn with Jupiter and Pluto. Like it's a call for humanity to mature and grow up and become adults and not look to, or, look, they'll take care of it, just tell me what to do, no. We let that happen, and now look where we are.
Exactly.
Like that hasn't worked.
No, we're not going to do that anymore.
And that's where then that Saturn Capricorn energy, because every sign and planet has many different shades and sides to it, but this is this part of it where that desire we have for security literally becomes a prison, becomes a jail. So we've got to find new ways of building a sense of security and safety and groundedness in this world together with very, very, very different way of doing it, so that we're free and self-responsible and responsible for each other, not looking to someone else, up there to do it.
And I know we will.
We will.
We will do it.
That's where we're going.
Yeah, because we're already doing it. We've already evolved and started to do the build the new foundations already within us first.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Aquarius is the sign of communities.
Yeah.
And people in their own immediate locality, instead of having one world order, it's localities coming together and working together and creating their own laws, rules, systems that work for them in the context of that region and so on, and then it might move out to areas around that and so on and so on. So humanity's going to get very creative.
And very interesting.
Yeah. So it's an extraordinary time to be alive. So this second half of December is pivotal, very strong, powerful. And I think it's really important as this Aquarius energy starts to come in, that we are grounded and we can do that, just becoming as conscious as we can of our bodies, of our feet, earth on the feet, meditating so that energetically we bring our energies back in here, because it's very easy for us to we get pulled out there in our nervous system, our mind. There's so much stimulation daily, regularly back here. Go and sit under a tree. It's got to be as often as possible.
I agree.
Big drum, boom, boom, that grounding beat of the earth, boom.
Medicine drum.
Medicine drum. Sometimes in the shower I find myself just doing really deep sort of toning, and it resonates in the shower, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Brings us back down and in, So really important, because as I've always said and will always say, every sign has its challenging aspects, and in Aquarius, on a kind of health level, some of the health conditions that can arise are to do with our nervous system, but also mental health. So if we're ungrounded, our minds can just get really fried, our nervous systems can get fried, and we can lose the plot a little bit. And we can end up just going a little crazy, and we just can get ungrounded. So and that's where I think for the next 2 years Saturn will be in Aquarius, because Jupiter Aquarius says let's go, and just is ready to go out there,
Bring the spaceship.
And it's ready to fly, literally fly.
Yes.
And Saturn says, great, keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Deal with these real issues right here and right now. And at the same, it's like the way I see it, it's a bit like a tree with its roots in the earth, but it's open to the sky. It's like, so we become fully integrated, open to the cosmos, in the body, on the ground. So that's like a really, really important thing here. I'm sure we'll be talking about that lots more in the, in
I can't wait for our
to
conversations
come.
next year. It's going to be amazing.
Many things are going to unfold.
Unraveling.
Yep.
Riding those waves.
Technologically, some extraordinary things are going to be happening. They already are, and a lot of it's being controlled and restricted. So a lot of themes around that will be moving as well. So then, just to kind of round the story off and to finish it a little bit, but that's the sequence of the big things: the eclipse, Saturn in Aquarius, Jupiter into Aquarius, the solstice, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, all from the 15th to the 22nd. Right? That's like a week of these big, big things. And then 2 days later, on the 23rd, there is a conjunction of Uranus with the black moon Lilith, followed on the next day, which is Boxing Day, by the third of 3 squares between Mars and Pluto. So, it's a lot going on in the last part of the year. So Uranus conjunct the black moon Lilith. I will next year talk more about Uranus in Taurus.
Yeah.
It's there for 7 years because it's going to be a lot more active next year.
Interesting.
So Uranus is the Aquarius planet, and in Taurus for 7 years, has been already for 2. The black moon Lilith is to do, I think we touched on this last time.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's to do with the divine feminine and the power of the divine feminine, and the repression and oppression of that's been going on this planet for a long time. Some thousands of years. And, you know, which has created the patriarchal order, and which has done a great disservice to many men as well, not just to women, and the earth herself, and all things of the feminine nature. So, you know, in recent decades, of course, the feminine principle has really become more apparent. It's showing itself more. It's coming through, and it's coming through women. You know, each
women in politics,
individual women, and even this year we're seeing some extraordinarily powerful women, so impressive. You know, stepping up and stepping forward right on the front line and speaking with great intelligence, integrity, honour and self-respect on behalf of the world. And how might you be experiencing that in your own life? You know, what's going on is this kind of real acceleration now of, and I've been seeing and speaking about this for some time because I'm very passionate about the black moon Lilith, and you know, I see that as every woman makes another step towards her own personal honouring of who she is as a woman, you know, and healing all those old wounds of oppression and denial, and becoming more empowered and more clear about who she is, then it's like something of this repressed feminine on a more universal level goes up a notch. You know, so it happens through every single woman, every single individual woman, and the men who love and respect and support her and that. Yeah, because there are many.
Yeah.
Who know that this world won't change until that imbalance is addressed.
Yeah.
Until that extreme imbalance of the yang. We could use terms like yang and yin if we don't like masculine and feminine. Same thing. The yang's been like completely in dominance. So what's happening is the feminine ascends and begins to rise and get stronger. It's like the dynamic begins to shift, and the energetic begin, and this starts to kind of settle down, and its dominance lessens, because it has to, because she's coming up and she's strong. This is not a, you know, we've been told that the feminine is a bit weak and feeble. No, not. And when we come to this place on this planet, which is coming, it's already moving, but it's coming, it's part of the Aquarian age of equality. When we're here, and it's not a static thing, but when we're here, this world will change. It's already happening. So there's a whole lot more about it, but I do love that it's this conjunction. And by the way, the black moon Lilith is in a sign for 9 months, so you know, a month or so ago she came out of Aries and moved into Taurus, which is Earth. So that includes like liberating Gaia from the yoke of patriarchal dominance, you know, the rape, pillage, plunder of all her resources and her beautiful nature, which is such a gift to us, and total disrespect and dishonouring. So, you know, I think this is a part of what we're going to be seeing as well. You know, this shift of consciousness.
Well, with Aquarius being an air sign,
That's right.
it's going to be about consciousness. Isn't it?
It's about consciousness. It's literally about a change of consciousness, and we're going to wake up or we're not.
So we've had that energy of the Capricorn energy of our material reality and our material needs.
Yes.
But then it's going to shift into the intellect, the consciousness, the
consciousness,
that sort of
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
And when a consciousness expands, we see things in a very, very different way. Very, very differently. And we see that this could all be done so differently.
Yes.
The way we organise ourselves on this planet could be completely... All those old systems and structures which have taken a long time to build up, in time are all going to get broken down. And it's not like a revolution we just smash it all down overnight. That's not helpful. No. It's like piece by piece, the dismantling, because these systems have not served us. They've served that at the top. And as that gets dismantled, everybody on the earth is able to participate. That's where we're going. It won't happen overnight, but that's where is able to participate in creating a very different way of cohabiting this planet.
And it's like this year with governments and business, we've seen it's not been a crash smash.
No,
it's been a deconstruction, which is very different. And as you deconstruct things, you look at, well, do I really need that? Which is what we've all done, isn't it? Do I really need that? And did I really need that when I was pulling that apart?
That's right.
And now we're going to say, oh, but we're going to rebuild and go, well, actually we need this over here. This is what we really need. And that's what's more important than what was there.
That's right. And people working together in networks. And that's happening. That's been happening for a while, but it's really accelerated this year. Like people, groups of people, and people connected around the planet, not just in your locality, but people who are aligned with a similar vision around particular issues, coming together and getting creative, and how can we co-create and look not just to what's happened and what's happening now, but how we move forward. And that's a piece of the part of this, isn't it? It's like getting our vision sighted on where we're going, even though we don't know exactly what it'll look like yet, but we're going there, not back there.
Yeah.
And it's people coming together and having these conversations, and having conversations that may not always be easy or comfortable either.
That's right.
Might be a little shocking even.
Yes, that electricity coming from Aquarius.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what else have we got?
So then the final...
Tell me, we're getting to the end.
We're almost there. So they were the big guys, but then, for the last few months as Mars has been going through Aries, and he'll finally come out of Aries, I forget the exact date, it's around about the 7th, 8th of January. So he's moving quickly now through the last stage of Aries. But on the 24th, which is Boxing Day, he'll make the final of 3 squares to Pluto. That's a very strong aspect between these two very strong planets. And, Mars in Aries, the sign of action and the warrior, squaring Pluto and Capricorn. So I don't know exactly. That can be quite intense for us individually. There might be quite strong, like, power dynamics going on, and clashes and struggles in your own individual experience, and also in the world, like, butting of heads and so on. But then from there to the end of the year, there's no more of these kind of major celestial events happening. So I think we have enough to process as we go through that final week of 2020.
Get the dust off.
Well done, humanity.
Yes,
that's right.
Fallout.
That's right. And I think, every individual is going to be looking at where they were this time last year and where they are now. What has shifted, because the ground has shifted for each and every one of us. I see it everywhere for individuals, and of course in the collective systems and so on for sure. But every individual, the ground has shifted, and we've all confronted and had to come to terms with things that we may have been avoiding for some time. This was the year when that just wasn't going to work anymore. To avoid. It's like the rubber hits the road here.
Yeah. So it's like a kind of beginning, a middle, and an end, isn't it?
Yes.
This year, yeah, and that's the end.
That's right, exactly, because all this began in January with that massive conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, and that all happened on the. What else was there? Was something going on right at the same time? Oh, it was an eclipse. I mean, so the year started in January with a bang. That was when this energy came in. And in December, there's another big piece, but it's a complete change, a complete shift. Yeah.
Very interesting. Wow. Well, stay tuned because there's more to come.
There is,
yes.
And we will certainly be probably continuing our journey if we are inspired to do
very
so.
Very much.
Yeah, because I think it's it's not like all of a sudden next year is going to be plain sailing and easy.
No.
But it's different.
Yes.
It's really different because this piece of 2020 is a watershed and many, many changes that have come, and we humans have a certain resistance and reluctance for that in many ways. There's a certain inertia in us, and but we're getting shaken up hugely.
Yeah, and I think too, like people have suffered economic losses this year, so it's going to make people a little bit more edgy. There'll probably be more proneness to deceit. And I don't want to end this on a negative note, but I'm just saying it so that you're aware to keep your eyes peeled.
Yes.
And because people are desperate. Some people are quite desperate,
true.
and there
That's
has been
true.
a lot more scamming going on. I've had so many scam phone calls; it's ridiculous.
Yes.
And I hate to think of people out there, particularly elderly people who aren't as familiar with this scamming,
Getting taken
that are
advantage
getting taken advantage of, and that's not right. So keep an eye out for each other, watch each other's
Beautiful.
backs.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
And
so.
that's what Aquarius does. It watches each other's back.
It's true because it's the sign of brotherhood and sisterhood and friendship, like real friendship, and we can do this together.
Yeah,
and it's about humanity. I mean, people have been saying all year that there's the 1% up there at the top, and the rest of us is 99%. I mean, we outweigh them just by sheer numbers, but only if we wake up.
Yes.
That's only true if we wake up to what's going on.
Yeah.
And are willing to stand up en masse, whether that's in the street or just in our actions in our own life and in our own clarity of mind, and just go, nope, not doing that.
Well, I think that
It's the rebellious instinct.
we're going to do that because that's Aquarius. That's the Aquarian age that we're moving into.
Exactly.
And if we're going to have any sort of advanced, responsible society, then that has to filter out. I was going to say filter down, but filter out to everyone.
That's right.
And we all have to be on an equal playing field and doing that for ourselves as well as each other.
And all participating. That's right. That's right. It's the group participation. So some interesting groups of people are going to be, and networking.
Yeah.
Are going to be showing up in the coming year or two for sure. Well, and then for decades and centuries to come.
Wow.
It's mind-boggling. But really, the energetic shifts are beyond our comprehension, actually, and the possibilities. I think the other little piece of this, I think that comes in as I say that, is that our human nervous systems and brains are so underutilised. We have no idea who we really are. We are great beings of light capable of so much, and we've just touched the surface, haven't we? There's going to be such an acceleration and awakening of all of those potentials, in the brains of humanity, phenomenally so. Like these young kids who are coming in are switched on, not all of them of course, but many of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that's it. I think we'll have to go back to Zoom because when we're together, we just keep talking and talking and talking.
I know. It's true.
But that's okay.
But it's fun.
But if you stayed with us, we really appreciate it.
That's right. That's right.
And we will be back with what we'll be having next time. We'll be having a full moon in.
Where am I?
We're about to have the solar eclipse new moon in Sag. So we'll be having
in Capricorn Cancer.
Oh yes.
Full moon in Capricorn Cancer.
Oh yes.
Because the sun will be in Capricorn and the moon will be in Cancer.
Well, stay tuned for that.
Yes.
And we'll be back to talk more about that.
And
next
enjoy
time.
the festive season, whatever that is.
Yes, and stay safe and and if you celebrate Christmas, have a merry one. And if you whatever you celebrate, have fun and look after each other.
Exactly.
Okay, till next time.
Bye.
Bye.